ordinary renderings of circulation. This ordinary rendering here was Lúcio Costa, one of Brazil's most famous modernist planners, who drew this schema for Barra da Tijuca, which is this area right here, this neighborhood. You can see the similarity in the lakes. Even though this happened in the military dictatorship, which is an extraordinary period, this is what I would determine an ordinary rendering of circulations. He drew this so that things and people would flow through that, move through that landscape through circulatory pathways. And that created this landscape, which is horrible, car-dominated, isolated, high consumption, private security, not a very integrated, nice place, but an ordinary one. And so Costa drew this, it was put into law, it resulted in an ordinary landscape. Rio 2016, on the other hand, extraordinarily rendered the city for the event. So this is an extraordinary rendering of the city, predicated on this previous ordinary rendering. And then this ordinary, extraordinary rendering becomes these circulatory lines that then creates the possibility for this, which is the Olympic Village. Now, in the city, the Olympic Village and these circulatory pathways are just part of the landscape. They've become ordinary, in a way, although they were developed under extraordinary conditions. And then the third part of this is the extra extraordinary renditions, if you will. The way that these things happen within the realization of the games themselves. And so here we have an ad that was on the side of a bus stop. It says, your trajectory is going to change with games. Plan your movement on this site to find out where the road closures, etc., were going to be. And this above is the IOC's extraordinary rendering of circulations around the Maracanã during the Olympics. And so each one of these arrows tells you about circulation pathways for certain populations at certain times. Who can circulate where and when for this entire complex. And of course, this extended to the entire city. But this is just one site within the Olympic city and the realization of the Olympic Games. So this is kind of the maximum extraordinary rendition of the circulations. And this is how it looks on the ground. So here we have Olympic lanes where you get fined for driving in if you don't have the Olympic sponsor. So you extraordinarily render the circulatory possibilities of residents in the city. You block lanes, so you extraordinarily render other pathways, so some can circulate and some don't. Here we have people following behind a visa sign, which is another sort of extraordinary render, so that they can circulate within certain parts of the stadium to the seats that their corporate membership has purchased for them. And so only certain people can do this. These people can't. They're just fans going in. So these are two different circulatory pathways that they're on. And here we see the challenging of circulations, the blocking of circulations by social movements. And so this is another extraordinary rendition of circulations, but in an oppositional framework. So this happens in both directions. And it is a fundamental part of what FIFA and the IOC do. Any period of the competition, which is 6 weeks, or 2 months actually, according to the contract, FIFA can shut down any city, and this was from Sao Paulo, 20 million people. Please. And this is how it happens. These are the mechanisms through which it happens. These are very explicit interventions in the urban fabric where you can extraordinarily render. And so if you declare a school holiday, the kids have to stay at home and the parents do too. And so you take 4 people off the street instead of just 1. And so you take away the circulatory possibilities of the local population and you insert a different population. So you extraordinarily render one to give to the Lord, as it were. And so this is the core practice of FIFA and the IOC, the capture of monopoly rents through extraordinary renditions of circulation. And so this leads me to come back to where I was 20 minutes ago, thinking about what is the emergent political economy of resistance like within this framework? How can we, if we understand the mechanism of flows, circulations, accumulations, and the exercise of power within the context of the mega event, where is it that we can insert our fingers and stop that, or resist it, or change it? And these are some ways where I think we can do it. In terms of, as I saw a few slides ago, the disruption of circulations is now being labeled economic terrorism in the state of North Carolina. And we can see why. Because if you disrupt circulations, urban circulations, by blocking streets, you are going to impact severely upon the accumulation abilities of somebody. And so this law is being passed against social movements all over the United States to declare the blocking of urban circulations an act of economic terrorism. But very effective. So this is one place we can intervene. Here, and inspired a little bit by Matt Hanna's talk the other day, can we influence others to turn away from the event, to look away? So do we have the power to influence the social capital or the cultural capital of the event by pointing out how destructive it is? And this has certainly been one of my tactics, and will continue to be one of my tactics, in disrupting and diminishing the power of the events through diminishing the accumulation of social, political, and cultural capital. Can't do much about their economic capital, but hopefully those will follow once they lose the social and cultural. And then here with the flows, we can intervene legally or as citizens in legislation to block and redirect the way that flows happen within a given urban context. And of course, the issue of power is massively complicated. I don't really have enough time to go into it here, but I'd be interested in hearing about what you think would fit in here and how the exercise of power in these events will happen. And so, thank you. That is where I am with the research at the moment, and I'm in the second stage of writing. Right now, I'll be presenting the extraordinary renditions of circulation at the AAG. I'll then write another article about how circulations turn into accumulation, and then a fourth article about the exercise of power with governmentality, power, and sovereignty in the context of these events. So I have the next things laid out, and hope to be working on that both here, New York City, or wherever I might be. So thank you very much.